Lost Soul Aside is looking like one of the best action games of the year. Taking inspiration from titles like Devil May Cry and Final Fantasy XV, this game is almost like the spiritual successor to both of these titles. From a one-man creator of this passion project to the director of his very own studio, trudging through years of development and hardship to finally bring you his dream game. We have lots of information to go over when it comes to Lost Soul Aside, including that of the very long development, and overall everything this game is striving to be leading up to its release come May 15th. So let's get into it. Now, if you haven't already known or haven't been following Lost Soul Aside news, this game has been in development for, 11 years at this point. A game that started off as an indie title, a AA scale project. But with the help of the China Hero Project, this initiative to find talented Chinese development teams and provide them with all of development, publishing, and marketing support, Lost Soul Aside was finally able to be pushed to more ambitious and higher heights. These developments begin to take shape as far back as 2016. But Yingbing actually goes into his reasonings as to why the development for this game took so long. And if you're at least somewhat familiar with game development, then this should be very understandable. This information comes from Average Style Action Enjoyer over on X, and it reads, "The project was conceived at a time when the console game development scene in China was still very young. Despite his impressive work on Lost Soul Aside's original trailer build, Yingbing had very little experience on how to actually make a full game. The team skills gradually improved and the situation got better. A lot of time was spent on building the team and on personal growth with trial and errors." And yeah, I mean, it's important to understand that when Yingbing showed off Lost Soul Aside, when he started this project, he didn't have an established team. This entire project at that time was really in its infant stages. So, taking into consideration the fact that you have to build a team from scratch, find backing and support for an entirely new game, an IP that nobody knows, on top of actually developing this new game and building its assets from the ground up, it is very understandable as to why this game took as long as it did. Even the most popular game developers and studios who have been doing this for years, at most it could take up to 6 to 7 years to create a fully fledged game. And that's with an experienced and established team that already knows what they're doing. So combining the fact that Yingbing had to work from pretty much nothing, building up a team that he knew he can trust to create his dream game, and also taking into consideration any internal or external setbacks, especially when you're talking about COVID-19. It's very little wonder as to why this game took as long as it did. And next up, of course, we have the Devil May Cry inspired combat. Yingbing goes a little bit more into his inspirations here and what it means for Lost Soul Aside. Quote, "I understand that this title places particular emphasis on battles, and that the action aspect was influenced by Bayonetta, Ninja Gaiden, and Devil May Cry. Could you tell us about the particular influences of each of these?" First of all, Bayonetta has very flashy character abilities, and they are expressed in a spectacular way. Ninja Gaiden is personally my favorite action game, and I love the speedy combat. Devil May Cry allows players to control a variety of combos, and it is fun to pursue the different actions. Lost Soul Aside features a character named Arena who is important to the main character. Arena can change its appearance in various ways, and can also change into a weapon to help during combat. Arena has a number of combat skills that gives it a major presence in battle. And they continue on by saying, quote, "Will there be fun for players to find their own combos as in Devil May Cry and other games?" That's right. We are constantly improving and enhancing the combat system to maintain a sense of speed and a certain level of depth. Players can develop their own unique styles, and even if they're not good at continuous fighting, they can utilize various systems to achieve high performance and smooth game progression. And yeah, obviously the game has many inspirations, but in my opinion, the most exciting one is the fact that the game takes from fast and fluid combat of some of the most popular action titles out there. I mean, I have seen some people upset that it takes inspiration from games like DMC and Bayonetta, but at the same time, like, what did you expect, right? These two titles are some of the most influential and recognizable action games out there, at least when you're talking about the hack and slash space. I don't know, I just find it funny that so many people will be upset that hack and slash hasn't been as prominent in the industry as they used to, yet scorn a game that actually tries to bring this gameplay back and is inspired by DMC see Ninja Gaiden and Bayonetta. Like, of course they're going to be influenced by these games in particular, given that they're still some of the best action games out there in general. But this is great to me because so much of the fun of these games comes from the player freedom and being able to combo with what you want and create your own playstyle. And to be able to watch how other people play and gain ideas from them, I mean, it's that feeling alone that has really made me fall in love with these types of games. Now, next up, and something that Yangbing says that really makes me believe that Lost Soul Aside didn't start shaping up to be what it is now until 2021. It says here, quote, "The footage that was shown in 2021 is what made the team settle on the overall tone and direction of the game. It was used as a reference template, finalizing the game's design, content like plot developments, the world's framework got sorted out on this period." Now, this is pretty interesting given how long this game has been in development. It was also a showcase that gave this game the push that it needed and convinced people to follow this project going forward. You know, most of what we saw in 2021 is stuff that is still reminiscent in the trailers that we see now for Lost Soul Aside, which also drives home just how long they've been working on this game. Yangbing then touches on their experience in developing for last-gen consoles. Quote, "Because this project was established during the PS4 era, a large number of assets were produced. After fully shifting development to only PS5, the graphics needed to be upgraded and optimized. The China Hero project team helped a lot with that. The changes in hardware is significant. As they improve, demand for more impressive production values increases. Projects established for the PS4 needed to migrate to the PS5 Pro. This forced them to continuously build on the visuals. And like I talked about earlier, this would have only added to the development time by years. This was a game being made when the last generation was nearing the end of its life cycle, and they needed to shift over development to PS5, and this happens a lot with game development in general. Developers making games at the end of a console generation who need to make that crucial decision on whether or not to continue production for both current and next gen, or to completely focus on the next generation of consoles. We're pretty much in the middle of the current generation. I mean, it's not really new gen anymore, but it's also been so long that we're now in the middle of a console generation where they have to consider the PS5 Pro version as well. But I mean, obviously you can tell just how much the game has improved just from a visual quality standpoint. Now all we gotta do is hope that the game finally releases this year. Now, of course, working with a game engine is the most important thing when you're, developing for a game. It is absolutely crucial to know what engine you should be using, especially for developers, and of course to make sure that the game that you want to create comes along smoothly, something which they also build on. It reads, quote, "The team considered updating the engine, but following discussions with publishers and the technical team, they decided to keep using the latest version of the Unreal Engine 4 instead of switching to Unreal Engine 5. And this absolutely makes sense. Unreal Engine 4 is still an amazing engine, and given that they already have most of their assets to create this game, tools that they've already been comfortable with and have been working with for years on end, it really doesn't make sense for them to try and switch over so late in development and waste more time. You may be wondering, well, isn't Unreal Engine 5 better? Well, yes and no. You see, recently too many games developed on Unreal Engine 5 have either been running into a plethora of issues or just straight up do not run well. This is of course a mix between developers not optimizing their games right, but also a problem with UE5 in general. Things like trying to run UE5 games at 60 FPS are experiencing major stutters, whereas games on UE4 really didn't have that problem. At least it wasn't as prominent, especially when you consider even the PS4 Pro could run many games at 60 FPS with no problems, but suddenly the PS5 is having trouble trying to run UE5 games at a steady frame rate. Now obviously there are many more reasons I could list, but the point is, Unreal Engine 5 is certainly not perfect. And I'd say UltiZero Games made the right decision to stick with what they've already been working with for years on end. Those were pretty much key points from both old and new interviews from Lost Soul aside. Tell me how you guys feel about this down below. With everything that we know about this game now, are you looking forward to Lost Soul aside, or has it been a game that you've since lost interest in as a result of its very long development? Hopefully by May 30th, we'll all find out if this very long wait was actually worth it.